WNST, Towson. And here on Sunday, the Ravens entertaining the undefeated Denver Broncos. This guy covers all things Broncos for Mile High Sports and is also the digital media director out there as well. And you can follow him on Twitter at @Drotar. That's Drotar. We welcome Shawn Drotar back on to preview all things Broncos on the backside of a sort of sweated-out victory over the Raiders on Sunday, Shawn.
Sort of sweated out. They were ahead for a grand total of 6 seconds. So, yeah, I don't know if you can sweat it out any more than that.
Well, in the case of the Broncos taking on the Raiders, I spent the offseason thinking the Broncos were going to be one of those 8-8 kind of teams, struggling to get to 500, figuring out who Case Keenum is. They got to get a running game going. They spent a lot of money on the defensive side of the ball and still have some deficiencies on the back end. But 2-0 is a pretty heady start. I know it's all about the competition you play. I know there'll be an underdog coming in here this week, and the Ravens had their own struggles in Cincinnati last week.
Yeah, they played. It's funny thing is you look at a lot of the stats, and things looked okay. You know, Joe Flacco, I think, looked okay. You don't like the 2 picks, but it wasn't a disaster. You couldn't seem to get much going on the ground. For the Broncos, that's one of the things that they're generally pretty good at. Even Oakland with Marshawn Lynch on Sunday, they managed to only get 3.5 yards to carry, a little under that, quite frankly. So for the Broncos, the rushing defense pretty stout. It was pretty stout last year. It looks to be pretty stout again. So I think that's something Denver's going to focus on and try to basically make Flacco and company beat them through the air.
Well, and that's what's been the game the last 2 weeks. I mean, Flacco threw 30 passes in the first half against the Bills, and the game was 40-0. He went away. Last week, they didn't run the ball, and they threw the ball 55 times. They got behind 3 touchdowns. We don't know if we have a running game here. We haven't really tried so much.
Yeah, well, that's always a trick, right? I mean, Alex Collins was maybe expected to be the guy from people outside of Baltimore, and 16 carries in 2 games. Yeah, there hasn't been a lot of commitment to it, it seems like. That Lamar Jackson is the guy in the small amount of time he's been in there that's really almost leading the team. He's only 3 yards behind Collins to lead the team in rushing. So that's something that I suspect they'll have to be a little more cognizant of when you play Denver. Denver's defense is not what it was a few years ago. Don't be fooled. It is not the no-fly zone. It's nothing like that anymore. But it's not bad. It's still a top probably 10 defense in the league, roughly so, with the ability on any given game to really harass a quarterback with Von Miller, with Shane Ray, with Shaq Barrett, with Derek Wolfe, and, of course, their top rookie, number 5 pick overall, Bradley Chubb.
Well, a big part of the game was kicking the field goals early in the game for the Raiders, right? I mean, the Broncos bend but didn't break in the end, in the beginning, and that kept them in the game, gave a chance to win. Yeah,
it did. And there were some, let's be totally honest here, if you're Denver, there were some very questionable choices, a huge mistake by John Gruden. And I remember at the time even talking to the folks I was watching the game with when he decided in the fourth quarter not to kick a field goal that would have put them up by 12, instead going for it on 4th down, 4th and 1, and in a weird sort of channeling of Pete Carroll, instead of giving it to Marshawn Lynch when you need 1 yard, decided to roll out and throw it to the fullback. That didn't work. Instead of a 12-point lead, you found that with a 9-point lead was all that was left, and the Broncos were able to make that back and get the win. So a huge mistake by Gruden that had he just either gone for the field goal, or maybe he was intent on going for the first down, just run with Lynch right up the middle. And failing to do so really directly cost the Raiders the game.
Shawn Drotar covers all things Broncos as the Broncos come to Baltimore this week. You can find him out at Mile High Sports and Drotar. That's Drotar out on Twitter. All of our WNST coverage brought to you by our friends at Freedmont Mortgage. Don't make a 30-year mistake by choosing the wrong lender. You need the right lender. You need Freedmont Education Online. Go to FreedmontMortgage.com, whether you're buying, selling, or thinking about it. Big thanks to Carl Delmont and our friends at Freedmont Mortgage for sponsoring our Tuesday night chat with Alex Lewis at Michael's Cafe. We'll be swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry. Joining us there on Tuesday. You can find the videos as well up on our WNSTV YouTube channel. Shawn, for you with the Broncos this year and Case Keenum and the decision in the offseason, and it's been a little bit of different quarterbacks there since Manning, trying to figure it out, drafting, signing, spending money. Confidence level in Elway at this point in running the organization for you?
I think he improved quite a bit from last summer to this summer. The year before, the previous 2 drafts have been all about basically getting athletes and assuming that they could coach them into football players. And that's how you end up with guys like Paxton Lynch. They seem to have adjusted. After last year's debacle of a season, the 5-11 campaign, they went and they got guys who almost every single one of the guys in the draft they selected were team captains or 3-year starters. got guys who've proven football players at the college level and figured even if they're not elite athletes, they're guys who know where they're supposed to be. And that's made a big difference. So that part makes me think that Elway has maybe adjusted now and learned a little bit more about the role. Not that he's a newbie here. The man has a Super Bowl ring after he constructed a team to go get that. But at the same time, you can always learn and you can always get better. And I think what he's done there is promising. As far as Keenum goes, Case Keenum, to my mind, is not the guy you saw in Minnesota last year. That was sort of a Jeremy Lin type situation where he just went on a rampage. The difference is the Vikings were a very good team, and he played well. I don't think he's that guy, though. The fact that he all last year has 4 already through 2 games, I think bears that out. His numbers in the first 2 games have been more similar to the way he's been in his career outside of Minnesota, but to his credit, in these last 2 games, he has gotten the job done. He's had led comeback drives both times. And on the very final drive of the game on Sunday, look, he looked very good. He found a way to make it happen and to stay within himself. I think in this case, Keenum maybe can find himself a little bit better if he tries to stay within himself a little bit more and not necessarily, think he's going to be Brett Favre out there. I think he can do that. I think he's getting better, and I think the team does already only 2 games in.
Well, turning the ball over is one thing, but you got to have Demaryius Thomas catch the ball when he gets it thrown to him, right? So drops were, to my eyes, a big part of the game on Sunday that stalled a couple of their drives.
Yes, and Thomas was the main culprit of that. He's had a pretty bad start when it comes to the drops. He's had these problems before. That's absolutely been the case. And they've been trying to feed him. He's had 21 targets, the most on the team. The second guy in targets, 15, is Emmanuel Sanders, who's caught 14 of those for 231 yards and a touchdown already, including 6 catches for more than 20 yards. So Sanders is the most dangerous guy. He and Keenum have had a rhythm really since the beginning of training camp. I think that they're going to continue through that. I think it's going to be very, very effective for the rest of the season. But the guy to keep an eye out for, if you haven't necessarily among the wide receivers, is rookie Cortland Sutton. Big physical specimen, very talented, and then undrafted college free agent Philip Lindsay, a local guy out of University of Colorado, went to Denver for his high school. He is only a handful of yards behind players to be the top rusher in the NFL in the first 2 weeks. First guy in history to be an undrafted college free agent and break 100 yards from scrimmage in each of his first 2 games. He is an explosive, shifty guy. The Broncos are utilizing him very effectively.
Part of it's who you play, right? We played Buffalo. We're feeling real good about ourselves. Then go out to Cincinnati on short rest, not so much. For Denver, having played Seattle the first week and running the football and playing well, and then Oakland without Khalil Mack, you guys must have been having a little celebration there in the Mile High State when Khalil Mack gets thrown out of your division unceremoniously before kickoff, right?
Yeah, I don't think anyone in the AFC West besides the Oakland Raiders missed Khalil Mack. That's for sure, and the Broncos first and foremost among them. If you would have looked at Jared Veldier, the Broncos tackle, who's been playing very well, is put in the concussion protocol, had to leave that game, and backup Billy Turner, who has not exactly distinguished himself in the league yet, was actually able to handle Bruce Irvin more or less through the rest of the game. You have to think if that was Khalil Mack, he probably would have eaten the Broncos back up for lunch. So, yeah, they don't miss him. But then again, I'm sure the Ravens would say the same thing. You can only play the teams that are put in front of you. And Denver's played the 2, and they've walked away with 2 wins.
Any thoughts for you on watching the Ravens play on Thursday? I'm sure you were doing a little recon on Flacco throwing the ball around against the Cincinnati Bengals. I'll say this. I think the Bengals are the best team in the division right now, even at 2-0. The Steelers look a mess. We get them next week after they have Fitzmagic on Monday night and Tampa Bay coming in there. We have Cleveland 2 weeks from now. But, I look at this and say, the Bengals might be better than advertised, and maybe that wasn't a very good look at the Ravens on Thursday night. But the Ravens got back in the game, and for that, I like the fight that they showed the other night. Certainly much more fight than they showed against Jacksonville last year.
Yeah, I think they look pretty good, actually. I've been pleasantly surprised with what they've been able to do. I think Flacco's looks very good. It's funny. I don't know how it's perceived necessarily in Baltimore, but there's still the idea that, is Joe Flacco an elite quarterback? Well, what's an elite quarterback? I don't know. I think Flacco starts for probably a whole bunch of teams in this league. So far through 2 games, he's completed 64% of his passes. That's good. He's got almost a 3-to-1 completion percentage. That's good. We know he's got a great arm. We know he can throw the deep ball. I think he's been fine. And then you have the opportunity to mix and match any way you'd like. If you wanted any sort of trick plays or any sort of option to use Lamar Jackson, you can do that. But I'm impressed with the receivers. when they added John Brown and Willie Snead, two guys, and Michael Crabtree as well, but the first two guys who have been effective under-the-radar guys for other teams, the Cardinals and the Saints respectively, they look like there's a very immediate rapport with Flacco. That's pretty dangerous because if you look at the Broncos game on Sunday, Amari Cooper, who is renowned for having basically stone hands, his completion percentage over the course of his career is about 50% on targets, 10 for 10 for 116 from Derek Carr on Sunday.
Well, catching the ball's part of it. You only get one guy to throw it, and it's got to go accurately. And in the case of Flacco, the first pick was really kind of the difference in the game. I think it sort of set things off with the 3 touchdowns with A.J. Green, and the Ravens are playing catch-up. We hope to not have that happen this week. Shawn Drotar from Mile High Sports is our guest here at WNST. All of our WNST programming brought to you by Pizza John's, my mom's favorite pizza, my wife's favorite pizza, my favorite pizza. Get on down there. Check out the ravioli, and don't go to sleep on their cheesesteaks as well. Beer and ice cream, and you can always take a pizza home with you at Pizza John's. They've been doing it for 50 years at Back River Neck Road in Essex. Go see what all the hubbub's about. Make sure you get some pepperoni on your pizza pie at Pizza John's. Also brought to you by King Discount Liquors, lottery, beer, booze, and the best prices in Baltimore. Get on over to Rosedale, see my friend Paul King, and give the King a ring. And check out our new commercial with Johnny Bev and the King All-Stars. Your lottery headquarters over there, as well as my stout and red wine headquarters. Shawn Drotar can be found out on Twitter at Drotar, that's Drotar, as well as at Mile High Sports, where they're getting ready for the Broncos' visit to Baltimore this week, and talking all things Broncos here in season, off season, but the rest of the league here, kickers not kicking, overtime games with ties. 2 weeks into this, we got a couple of strange storylines already, Shawn.
Yeah, I think the shortened overtime period obviously is going to cause more ties as the season goes along. That's obviously a problem, and when you put the games in the kicker's hands, or feet, as it were, you know that every once in a while this is going to happen. I mean, let's face it, the Cleveland Browns would be 2-0 if they had a better kicker. That's why they're shopping for one this week.
Well, that's what we would say for all the teams that tied, right? If any of these teams had a kicker, the games wouldn't have been tied. Extra points in regulation, the tie games 19-19, and then in overtime, everybody's missing kicks. The moving of the extra point back, and I know it kind of happened in the middle of the night, a couple years ago at the owners' meetings. It's truly affected the game in a great way, and it's made for our team all this money. We pay Justin Tucker to be our kicker and drinking our Royal Farms coffee and all that stuff. It's valuable. We have the best kicker. That makes us feel good.
Yeah, I probably should, and I think he is the best. Denver has no slouch in Brandon McManus as well. You saw him hit the clutch one on Sunday, but he's also got tremendous range. So you're talking about two teams that are less likely to have that issue when it comes to the game next week.
I want to kick the football in Denver where you guys have that thin air you breathe out there all the time.
It's not magical. Everyone thinks it's magical or something. It gives you about 8% more if you can hammer it.
I just remember running through the airport one time to catch a flight there, and I felt like I had a heart attack, and I thought, oh, yeah, it's Denver. That's why I feel like I'm going to have a heart attack. This week, what do you got? Broncos coming to Baltimore. Do you expect them to play well this week after being 2-0?
I think actually this close game that they just went through on Sunday is probably going to help them out. I think they're still feeling out some of their talent. They're incorporating the two new running backs, Lindsey and Freeman, into the offense. They're incorporating a couple new wide receivers. Tim Patrick was good. We've seen Cortland Sutton. And they're bringing the tight end back, both Andy Janovich and Jake Butt. Jake Butt, who was a very good college Mackey Award winner, missed all of last season after the injury he suffered in his final bowl game. Now looks to be back, and he looks pretty good for the Broncos, so that's very exciting too. I think they're still a work in progress, but there's a lot to like. I think this game is going to be a pretty good one. At the moment, until I see Denver on the road, especially when you go from west to east, I'm not going to pick them necessarily, but I think that this will be a pretty good test, and I think they're capable of winning the game. Just depends on which version of the Ravens, to my mind, shows up. Is it the one that we saw this in week 2, or is it the one that we saw just decimate? And I don't know, whatever, Buffalo, but absolutely blast them in week 1.
I'd be out doing the Bloody Marys in the brunch at 11 a.m. Mountain Time on Sunday. Let's see. I'd be doing that at Snooze near Cherry Creek with some pineapple upside-down pancakes. Enjoy the game on Sunday, Shawn. We'll be here in Baltimore watching your Broncos get after it. Appreciate the visit, my man.
Anytime. Thank you very much.
Shawn Drotar from Mile High Sports joining us from Denver, Colorado. You can follow him at Mile High Sports as well as at S Drotar. That's Drotar, and a lovely picture of downtown Denver on his Twitter. You can find me out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Our morning newspaper ships digitally to your email inbox every morning at 7 a.m. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. I want to give a reminder out about the John W. Brick Foundation 5K run. That is happening on the weekend of my 50th birthday, October 13th and 14th. The Brick family also bringing in Wim Hof to do the Iceman seminar on Saturday, October the 13th. Learn more at jwb5k.com. Big appreciation to the Brick family for sponsoring all that we do here at WNST. Last but never least, Nasty at WNST.net finds me. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram. We stream all of our video in HD on Facebook Live as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.